This is Niagara Falls. The freezing cold air turns the great waterfall's spray immediately into weightless ice. At this time, the river falls up. At sunset, the sun radiates through the upward dancing ice cloud to produce this uncanny scene. What might be a fire just beyond the trees is in fact the most powerful waterfall in North America, a wonder of the natural world. Often, the waterfall is completely obscured in these conditions, so that birds seem to appear and disappear from an icy vortex. The falls fall up as Nikola Tesla ruminates nearby. It was here that Tesla, along with George Westinghouse, built the first hydroelectric power plant, beginning the electrification of the world. This family had come to see the falls, only to be met with the sublime radiance of winter's impenetrable veil. As my lens became covered in ice crystals, we noticed a miraculous infinite rainbow behind us. I caught the image blind as the lens became frosted and unusable. The Niagara River rages, working itself up into a frenzy as it approaches the falls. It is impossible to tell if this is ecstasy or terror. The trees gaze on the indifferent river. They are still, fully immersed in their winter minds. The power of the river leaps violently into the imagination. It is entirely opposed to the geography that is otherwise entirely unremarkable. Nearby, Canadian geese, no doubt lacking their papers, pick at the snow. These tree branches reach into the river, and the river provides them with gloves made of pure ice. Even in the presence of such brilliance, humanity cannot help but lapse into self-involvement. My kicking ice is this man's walk across the falls on a steel beam. Why do it?
And fighting that wind isn't easy, and my hands actually at this point feel like they're going numb.
Entirely frozen. Here, the earliest photographic image of the falls, a daguerreotype by Hugh Lee Pattinson taken in 1840, a drawing preceding that by a century and a half. It is only by the 20th century that humans would begin deliberately hurling themselves over the falls, an artificial and foolish objective whose only goal is sensational spectacle.
Riverman William Hill looks over his rubber barrel made of 14 tubes bound with fishnet, which he believes will take him safely over Niagara Falls. Taking his last look at this world, Hill climbs in, and the barrel is towed towards the falls, at the foot of which Hill's brothers wait in a boat. Hurried along by the swift current, the barrel hurtles over the 160-foot falls, and then, as spectators watch on both banks, a frenzied search goes on, but only the battered barrel comes to the surface. As he searches for the body, Hill's brother vows to go over the falls himself to conquer the jinx that killed his brother.
This woman's face expresses the nature of these attempts, equal parts horror and disgust, an emotion proper to a civilization that feeds off this stupidity and calls it bravery. Charles Stevens, a 58-year-old barber from Bristol, holds the unfortunate distinction of being the first to die in such an attempt. The first successful barrel traverse of the falls occurred when Annie Edson Taylor went over in her self-designed barrel October 24, 1901, her 63rd birthday. She emerged with a bloody head. She did not recommend the experience. She undertook the endeavor in order to, quote, avoid the poorhouse, as she was a widowed school teacher. She succeeded, but remained poor. Her cat, who in fact went over the falls first in a test run, never forgave her. Annie Taylor took the title Queen of the Mist. Unsurprisingly, the name was appropriated from a Haudenosaunee myth. Lilawala, known affectionately as the Maid of the Mist, was said to have accidentally gone over the falls and saved by Hinnom, the thunder god, who teaches her how to defeat the monstrous snake in the river that sucked her over the precipice. Other acts of courage preceded the 20th century's fascination with asinine spectacle. The Niagara River, which divides the U.S. from Canada, was for many fugitive slaves the final stop on the journey to freedom on the Underground Railroad, shepherded along by John Morrison and James Patterson, here depicted in watercolor by E.B. Lewis. Harriet Tubman, too, brought the indentured to freedom over the Niagara Suspension Bridge. And prior to the American Revolution, Pontiac's Rebellion of 1763 caused the English to issue a proclamation that many view as the first instance of European legal sovereignty granted to a native population. Today, casinos tower over the falls, a grim presence. Mine is an invisible falls, shrouded in its own beauty, too sublime to see, too present to ignore. It is a falls that refuses the 20th century's refusal of the actual. It becomes invisible. It falls up, shocking the eyes, piercing the mind, and turning both into pure wastebaskets for the sublime. It falls up.